North American Forum, The Secret Cabal of Trinational Elites. Power Elite, 15 June, 2014. By Terry Melanson. Copyright, September 28, 2006. You're talking about such an important thing. We're talking about the integration of Canada into the United States. For them to hold this meeting in secret and to make every effort to avoid anybody learning about it, right away you've got to be hugely concerned, MacLeod said. Top secret, Banff security meeting attracted U.S., Mexico officials. My first thought following the news of the secret meeting of elites at Banff Springs Hotel, Alberta, Canada September 12 to 14, was that this amounted to a new group of insiders in the tradition of the Bilderbergers. This assessment turned out to be more precise than I had originally anticipated. According to a participant at the 2006 North American Forum held in Banff, the forum began last year as a parallel structure to the Security and Prosperity Partnership (SPP) for North America, which was announced on March 23, 2005 in Waco, Texas. As the Banff conference was coming to a close, Thomas Shannon addressed officials from the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade in Ottawa, Canada. I had a chance to go out to Banff, where yesterday and today actually, Canada, the United States and Mexico held the second session of the North American Forum. For those of you who aren't familiar with the North American Forum, it sprang up as a parallel structure to the Security and Prosperity Partnership of North America. It was originally an effort to bring opinion makers, private sector leaders, university professors and presidents, and leaders of NGOs, non-governmental organizations, together with government officials from the three countries of North America to begin to talk about North American security and to begin to see if there was some way that together, the governments working with the private sector and universities and NGOs could begin to create a vision for North America and an understanding of what North America is as an entity, and then how governments could be working better together to fashion more productive cooperation and address the kinds of problems we saw in the immediate aftermath of September 11. There are three conveners or co-conveners for this. On the U.S. side it's former Secretary of State George Shultz. On the Mexican side it's former Finance Minister Pedro Aspe, and on the Canadian side it's the former Premier of Alberta Peter MacLeod. The first session was held last year in Sonoma. This year it's held in Banff. Next year it will be held in Mexico. State Department's Shannon addresses high the Americas Matter Cadio Auditorium, September 14, 2006. Shannon left out the fact that the North American Forum was held in secrecy and the only reporter officially invited was Mary Anastasia O'Grady of the Wall Street Journal. That we even know about the group is due to leaked documents and attendee list and forum agenda supplied by MacLeod, the founding chairman of the Council of Canadians. The North American Forum is tasked with laying the groundwork for an EU-like North American Union. In building a North American community from the Council on Foreign Relations Independent Task Force on the Future of North America, the convening of secret cabals is recommended as one of the steps toward implementing North American integration. On pages 30-31 of the report, under the heading From Vision to Action, Institutions to Guide Trinational Relations, the authors advocate for institutional structures and arrangements to drive the agenda and manage deeper relations. One of the ways to do this now, says the report, is to implement a North American Advisory Council. To ensure regular injection of creative energy into the various efforts related to North American integration, the three governments should appoint an independent body of advisors. This body should be composed of eminent persons from outside government, appointed to staggered multi-year terms to ensure their independence. Their mandate would be to engage in creative exploration of new ideas from a North American perspective and to provide a public voice for North America. A complementary approach would be to establish private bodies that would meet regularly or annually to buttress North American relationships, along the lines of the Bilderberg or WERCON conferences, organized to support transatlantic relations. Emphasis mine. As far as I can tell, this startling admission has been overlooked. The North American Advisory Council has indeed been established. And as suggested in the report, it has been patterned after the Bilderberg Group, a notoriously secretive council of Western political leaders, industrialists and financiers, which derived its name from the hotel in which it met for the first time in 1954, with funds provided by the CIA. Hugh Wilford, Alling the tune. The CIA, the British left in the Cold War, 1945 to 1960, in the Cultural Cold War in Western Europe, 1945-60, 47. Of particular interest, in the same book, is Valerie Auberg's Recognizing Atlanticism, the Bilderberg Group and the Atlantic Institute, 1952 to 1963, 92-109. The Bilderberg Group was the hidden hand behind European integration of trade and economic policy, leading to a common market free trade area, a common currency, and eventually a European Union (EU). The North American Forum will do the same on the side of the Atlantic. Both are secret and unaccountable. The press is forbidden to report on the proceedings, and whatever transpires is a mystery. In the digital age, it's increasingly common for the average person in the West to have their own personal website or blog, yet the Bilderberg Group doesn't maintain a web presence. In fact, we wouldn't even know of its existence had it not been for the heroic efforts of American Free Press sleuth Jim Tucker, and the UK's Tony Gosling. The CFR's building a North American Community Report No. 53, explicitly calling for the creation of Bilderberg-like advisory council, was issued 5 months before the first meeting of the North American Forum in October, 2005. Report No. 53 was the final recommendation before the Independent Task Force on North America disbanded in September, 2005. A month later in Sonoma, California, 12 former task force members convened in secret closed sessions just as they had recommended earlier that year. The 2006 North American Forum participants, who were also members of the CFR-sponsored Independent Task Force on North America, are Pedro Asp, Thomas P. D'Aquino, Wendy K. Dobson, Pierre Mark Johnson, John P. Manley, Carla A. Hills, Robert A. Pastor, Doris Meissner, Andres Rosendal, Luis de la Calle, Carlos Heredia and Luis Rubio. Elite structures, membership cross-fertilization, and free trade corporatism. Over the past few days I have compiled biographies of the 2006 North American Forum participants. Among attendees there's considerable overlap between certain elite organizations. Council on Foreign Relations 16, George P. Schultz, Carla A. Hills, Kenneth W. Dam, Daniel W. Fisk, Carla A. Hills, Ronald F. Lehman II, Doris Meissner, Robert A. Pastor, William J. Perry, Donald H. Rumsfeld, James R. Schlesinger, William Schneider, David G. Victor, Jane Wales, R. James Woolsey, Andres Rosennal. Pacific Council on International Policy 8, Thomas P. D'Aquino, Beryl Rattle, Ronald F. Lehman II, Doris Meissner, Robert A. Pastor, William J. Perry, Jane Wales, Andres Rosennal. Canadian Council of Chief Executives 6, Thomas P. D'Aquino, Richard L. George, Paul J. Hill, James S. Kinnear, Harold Enkville, Ronald N. Mannix. Trilateral Commission 5, E. Peter Lloyd, Wendy K. Dobson, Gordon Smith, Carla A. Hills, William J. Perry. Canadian Institute of International Affairs 4, Wendy K. Dobson, John English, Roger Gibbons, John P. Manley. World Affairs Council of Northern California 3, George P. Schultz, William J. Perry, Jane Wales. Canada West Foundation 3, Brian A. Feliski, Roger Gibbons, James K. Gray. Alfalfa Club 3, George P. Schultz, Donald H. Rumsfeld, James R. Schlesinger. Bilderberg Group 2, Kenneth W. Dam, William J. Perry. Bohemian Grove 2, George P. Schultz, R. James Woolsey. With 6 attendees, the Canadian Council of Chief Executives (CCC) was also the organizer of this year's North American Forum. The formidable collective of 150 CEOs from the largest transnational corporations in Canada were co-sponsors of the Independent Task Force on North America. In CCC's previous incarnation they were known as the Business Council on National Issues (BCNI), formed in 1976 by the CEOs of US-based Imperial Oil and Noranda, and having 30 original members. Big names such as Air Canada, AT&T, Bechtel, Bombardier, Canadian Pacific, Cargill, DuPont, General Motors, Hewlett-Packard, Lorem, Macmillan Bloedel, Mitsubishi, Monsanto, Nestle, Northern Telecom, Petro-Canada and Placer Dome. The BCN effectively determines social and economic policy for the country, wrote Murray Dobbin in 1998. The Myth of the Good Corporate Citizen, Canada and Democracy in the Age of Globalization, 176. They represent a new enlightened business class formed for the purpose of transforming public policy, consolidating enough power to become virtually a parallel government. Dobbin, 167. Similar to the Bilderberg's role in directing the integration of Europe, the CCC were the hidden persuaders behind the Free Trade Agreement FTA and NAFTA. On BCNI-CCC, all experts has this to say. The Business Council on National Issues BCNI was an important lobbying group in Canada. They are most notable for their pro-free trade advocacy during the Prime Ministership of Brian Mulroney that led to the introduction of the Canadian-American Free Trade Agreement. During this period they were led by Tom D'Aquino. In the 1988 Canadian election the BCNI spent millions of dollars on advertisements in support of free trade. It is now known as the Canadian Council of Chief Executives. The Canadian Council of Chief Executives is the premier business lobby group in Canada. They hold tremendous sway over internal and external trade practices. Statistics Canada shows that in 2001 just 4% of all Canadian businesses accounted for 82% of exports. The majority of those 4% are members of the CCC. So the same corporations, who engineered the North American Free Trade Agreement, have conspired with the CFR to implement an even deeper economic integration of North America. The richest 4% are the beneficiaries, with the end result being a de facto government formed by the TNC's transnational corporations. The following illustrates the stark reality of the situation and the real meaning behind the so-called free trade agreements in North America. Corporations intervene politically everywhere in the world wherever they have interests. It is part of doing business. In Canada, every industry has had its methods and key issues. But what if they could all intervene just once, in order to secure a law that could render them super citizens, that would make interventions on hundreds of separate issues virtually unnecessary? That is essentially what the Canada-US Free Trade Agreement FTA promised. It has been called a Bill of Rights for corporations, but even this description underestimates its eventual impact. In effect, the FTA allowed corporations to begin the final stage of opting out of the social contract altogether. It established the principle that corporations had no inherent obligations to nation-states in which they did business. They had all the legal rights of citizens but had the obligations waived. It was a kind of unilateral declaration of transnational corporate citizenship. Dobbin, 46. Super citizens, indeed, with the power and ambition to achieve total domination. Suggested reading. Connie Fogel, He Metamorphosis and Sabotage of Canada by Our Own Government, the North American Union, Canadian Action Party. Emmeline of the Progress Toward a North American Union, Vive le Canada. Patrick Wood, Toward a North American Union, 3 parts, NEWSWITHVIEWS.com. Miguel Picard, Renational Elites Map North American Future in NAFTA Plus, America's Program, International Relations Center IRC. Pierre Hillard, Globalization, Building a North American Community, Spectrazine. Dennis B. Reed, Reading the North American Union, The New American, October 2, 2006. Dennis L. Cuddy, Ph.D., Security and Prosperity Partnership Background, NEWSWITHVIEWS.com, August 7, 2006. William F. Jasper, Ogs Gallery of EU Founders, The New American, July 12, 2004. Anata U.S. Integration, A Chronology, The Council of Canadians. Henrietta Bowman, Becoming North American Union is David Rockefeller's Baby, Sagebrush Saloon. Jerome R. Corsi, at Robert Pastor, Father of the North American Union, Human Events Online. Mordecai Zember and Benita Ribbentrop, He Elite Rosters. Official report on the Bilderberg meeting at Fuji, 4-6 October 1957, DY and Base. Professor Mike Peters, He Bilderberg Group in the Project of European Unification, Lobster Magazine.